Desert Oracle Radio, the voice of the desert.
Night has fallen on the desert on this blessed summer night. Shelter from the solar storm. If you're traveling around or across the Mojave Desert tonight or anytime lately, maybe you've driven on Highway 247. One of the rare highways you can travel from one end to the other in a couple of scenic hours. The road begins or ends, depending on your point of view and local allegiances, in the historic Route 66 and railroad town of Barstow, California. Chicago, St. Louis, Joplin, Oklahoma City, Amarillo, Gallup, Flagstaff. Don't forget Winona. Kingman, Arizona, Barstow, and San Bernardino, California. Those are the towns named in Bobby Troupe's 1946 song, Get Your Kicks on Route 66. It was a big hit for Nat King Cole, then a bigger hit for Bing Crosby with the Andrews Sisters, and then it was a standard, covered by everybody from jazz cats to hillbilly cats, and especially the rock and rollers. Chuck Berry did his version for 1961's New Jukebox Hits, and that's how the Rolling Stones learned it. Or maybe they learned it from a Perry Como version owned by the legendary Naker Felge. Whatever the story, I always liked the Rolling Stones version from their debut record, recorded and released in the early months of 1964. Well, that was before I was born, but I bought the album 2 decades later when I was a teenager with a pickup and a strong desire to see every town where you could get your kicks on Route 66, and really every western town mentioned by any singer in any song from any time. Tucson to Tucumcari, Tehachapi to Tonopah, El Paso City by the Rio Grande, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, Boulder, Colorado, Winnemucca, Nevada, Walla Walla, Washington, Santa Fe and Silver City, Winslow, Arizona. While Barstow is not everybody's all-time favorite destination in the Mojave, it's often the most necessary one. You need gas for the car, coffee for the brain, and the classic Del Taco on Mountain View, kept by the original owners in the glory days condition of 1970s fast food luxury. They've even got table service. Well, you order at the counter, but then you take a number to your table and somebody brings it out, and it's about 5 times better than the usual Del Tacos, which I'll still never turn down on a road trip. Well, that's the only thing there. But at the Barstow locations, I think there's 3 in all, including the one by the outlet shops and the truck stops. They've got a couple of special items, but mostly it's the classic menu. Everything done right. Same people have worked there for many years. Seems like a lively and pleasant workplace compared to the dreary sadness of 2-employee fast food joints at most other roadside stops. Except for the In-N-Out burger places, it's crazy what happens when you sell food people want to eat and the price is reasonable and the employees are all fairly paid, upstanding citizens with those crisp white uniform shirts and paper caps. People will line up for that again and again at the register and in the drive-thru. But if you're wondering, there is an In-N-Out by the outlet mall, by the Outlet Mall Del Taco, Lakewood exit off the 15 just southwest of our endpoint if you're taking State Highway 247 north out of Yucca Valley, north from Joshua Tree National Park. Get your stuff, we're ready to go. You know, people will come to the Mojave on purpose in summertime and then ask me for advice on what to do and where to go. And I always say, well, the sane options would be an alpine lake up in the high Sierra, or maybe Encinitas down by San Diego where it's cool and foggy for half the day and you can go outside without bursting into flames. But they don't listen. A couple of summers ago, a guy died in Death Valley just from riding his motorcycle outside. Overheated. The 120-degree heat is no less lethal just because it's blowing all over you at cruising speed. He just dehydrated and died.
Desert Oracle Radio.
If you know the 247 on the Yucca Valley end, you likely know it as Old Woman Springs Road, which is named for an interesting place. The Old Woman Springs Ranch, exactly 30 miles northwest from the 247's beginning point at 29 Palms Highway, the 62, and Joshua Lane, which goes another 5 miles south to end at Black Rock Canyon Campground. But there's a lot on the way from point A to point B. If you need gasoline or nicotine or any other such road fuel, you can find it within a block or so of the Highway 62 and 247 junction. May not be your first choice, or third choice even. And you might wonder how such conditions can persist in a town of 20,000 with 3 million annual visitors coming through. But such are the mysteries of the desert. So orient yourself to the Great North Star or the letter N on your car's digital compass if it's got one. And let's get out of Yucca Valley before it's too late. Note the small plane airport on the right with the popular Copper Room overlooking the runway and the always sketchy convenience store immediately to the left, illuminated by the large red letter that comes after J. You're now going up the grade, one of a half dozen long ones on this drive, but not one of the especially treacherous grades with hairpin curves. Those come later. Enjoy the urban forest of Joshua trees to the left and jot down the for sale number if you'd like to mow them all down for yet another gas station, car wash, convenience store. Now watch out for the beaters doing 35 coming up the hill. They mostly turn off at Paxton just ahead. And anyway, there's a passing lane just past that, which on this road seems to be the right lane. Only the truckers hauling onions and garlic up from the Imperial Valley seem to have learned that the left lane is for passing. No matter, it's all over in a few miles. And our version of heavy traffic would be laughed at in Los Angeles. You'll see a couple of interesting houses built high up in the rocks on either side of traffic, winding through here, and then some industrial shops, a warehouse church or two, and the old garbage truck lot at the last stoplight you'll see for a while at Skyline and Buena Vista Drive. Buena Vista means Walt Disney in Spanish. Isn't that something? Before long, you're headed down the wide mouth of Pipes Canyon, and you want to watch your speed because this grade is steeper than it looks. You can easily find yourself rolling too fast. Too fast for the law, anyway. and every now and then there's a chippy hiding at the bottom. Pipes Canyon is probably the prettiest landscape for miles around here, like an old cowboy movie in Vista Vision, which means view vision, but doesn't sound as good. It doesn't really describe the wide vista view you get when coming or going from Pipes Canyon. Too bad there's no time to turn off today. Then the road straightens out, the 247 and here's where it really has some of that old high desert feel. You start feeling like you're in the backcountry, and you almost are. The Joshua trees are dense, and the infamous Landers Fault is right by your side, on the east side of the road. On June 28 of 1992, as the presidential campaign was heating up between George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, and Ross Perot, and the first Gulf War had already been nearly forgotten, but not by the Marines out here who fought it, a massive trembler struck this part of the high desert, the 7.3 magnitude Landers quake. The road you're riding on was buckled and broken in a dozen places between here and Landers, which stretches out on your right now, looking northeast. But the inklings of a town you see just ahead is actually Flamingo Heights, a small community named after its founder, Eleanor Flamingo, that might be a good stop if you're hungry. The famous La Copine restaurant is here on your left, going strong for 10 years now, along with the less famous but tasty Hero Market restaurant and deli inside a gas station convenience store, a Dollar General, and a couple of pizza places too, basically all the big city amenities you'll find in Joshua Tree. And pretty much the last of anything you'll see in the way of civilization for a while. If you've got business in Landers, you'll probably want to turn right at Retchie Road. The Morongo Basin Historical Museum is out that way, 3 miles due east, open Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 4. Now there's a long, easy curve, first this way and then that way as you go round the Calvary Chapel with its highway sign proclaiming God as number one. Well, he better be. I hope you're right. If you're going to paint a sign and everything. I don't like thinking about what might outrank God. The ancient Greeks really did not like to think about it either. Zeus comes from Proto-Indo-European Deus. No one knows how it's really pronounced, but something like that. That's the basic word for God in most European languages, Anatolian and Indian languages too. Well, that's the God most Greeks and later the Romans meant, unless they specified another god or goddess, often the literal offspring of Father Zeus, Deus Pater in the reconstructed Proto-Indo-European, Father Daylight. Because that's what the ancient word meant, daylight and sky and God the Father all in one. But who created God? Hesiod says it was the Titans, Mother Rhea and Father Kronos. Kronos was not a model parent. He ate all of his children, except the one Rhea hid away on Crete, the infant Zeus. So Zeus, like King Minos and even the Philistines of Canaan, was a Cretan. Just don't say it to his face. The Titans, 12 of them, again according to Hesiod's beautiful poem, Works and Days, were themselves born to Gaia, Mother Earth, and Oranos, Father Sky, the primordial gods of Earth. And all this comes from something that sounds like the creation of the universe out of darkness and chaos. That's where the word comes from, chaos, the chasm from which everything emerged, the god chaos. The Gnostics have their own dozen versions of this, but much worse, much gloomier, horrible to contemplate. Besides, being on a road trip is no time to start questioning the rank of the gods. Wondering if there's a blind creator god deceived by the... I don't even want to say it. I don't want to plant such a seed in your mind. Whichever god you call out to when an oncoming semi-truck has suddenly drifted into your lane, that's your number one. You know the name. Look up the number. The landscape around you now becomes more barren, noticeably warmer in this time of year. Scraggly creosote bushes blowing in the hot breeze. Their deep green leaves, thick and waxy, in defense against the brutal sun. The row of mountains you see to your left, filling the view to the left, those are the San Bernardinos. And straight ahead, if you know where you're going, is the Rodman Mountains Wilderness area. Nice place to visit, maybe in December or January. And to your right, coming up at the 16-mile mark, if you activated your trip odometer, is a stand of granite boulders covered in generations of generally hideous spray paint graffiti. When those pop-up raves were a thing a while ago, they'd often set up right there, next to the highway and the rocks and the garbage and graffiti. Still, there are a couple of interesting larger paintings here, best observed at 55 miles per hour. We are thankful the spray paint graffiti on the boulders problem is mostly limited to these crude landmarks. Better here than everywhere else. And just a week or so back, a man was found dead here in the Johnson Valley Painted Rocks, as they're known, just off the highway, and apparently dead by his own hand. As our Z1077 news desk reported on June 19, Mark Camerlore of Orange, California, aged 52, ended his life here. God rest his soul. A second body was found there only a month earlier, in May. Well, I looked up Mark, and apparently he was a life coach. I'd call somebody else, honestly. Somebody who is not a life coach, I mean. When I'm down, I'll call somebody and say, let's go for a drive. And if they can't go because it's midnight on a Monday, well, I just go by myself. I prefer to drive by myself most of the time. Driving alone at night between here and there, who knows where. But let me say something to the other night owls out there, the night riders and space truckers or the peak baggers thinking they'll make some easy nighttime miles before the sun comes up. Right now and throughout this summer into the early fall of the year 2025, Caltrans is working on the highway, laying down the blacktop currently from Sunday night through Thursday night at different sections between Yucca Valley and Lucerne Valley, but mostly down here on this side. So take a look at your phone map before you drive all night. It might show the lane closures. If you do have a lane closure ahead, you're going to sit there waiting for the pilot car. Maybe. It's 50-50. But if you do wait, well, maybe it's 20 minutes. That's the maximum, so who cares? Go anyway if you're going that way. Just know about it. Let's consult the press release from Caltrans. This is a $22 million pavement rehabilitation and shoulder widening project along State Route 247, SR 247, in the Morongo Basin. Funded by Senate Bill 1, SB 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017, this project aims to improve safety, pavement life, and access for all users, including motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. And what about the coyotes? Construction is underway between the State Route 62 junction and Jen Road near Yucca Valley. Motorists will notice construction signs, high visibility fencing for environmental protection, and active clearing operations in shoulder areas. Caltrans expects to complete the project in fall 2025. Well, that's good. That road has been showing its wear for a long time, especially between Johnson Valley and the Morongo Basin. And every time it rains, which is a couple times a year, if we're lucky, another chunk of old asphalt highway crumbles down the wash. Highway 247 was originally planned as a divided freeway, a major part of California's roadway system. But for various reasons, including not nearly enough people living out here to justify such a thing, it wound up being a 2-lane, except for that passing lane coming up the grade out of Yucca. So it remains one of the only SoCal straightaways once the road turns west towards Lucerne Valley, where you can do heroic amounts of passing semi-trucks and slow-going campers towing dune buggies and all that. Just use your brain and your eyes, and if you have any doubt at all, then you are not in a position to put yourself and others at risk of a horrific, blood-soaked pileup. Take it easy, relax, pull over and use nature's urinal behind that wispy creosote, whipped around by the ceaseless desert wind. And please, please, don't step on the rattlesnakes. When the highway opened back in 1959, it was called State Route 26. But a half dozen years later, it became State Route 247. And that's how it is 60 years later. You can contemplate the significance as you ponder the wide, flat expanses of the Johnson Valley OHV area. More than 100,000 acres in all, although the Marine Corps is always trying to chomp away a little more of the Mojave for their base. This is where King of the Hammers happens if you've never been but always wondered. It's like monster trucks, gladiatorial games, just crazy scenes. But if you're driving on a quiet day, and most days out there are quiet, then this is prime driving country, you and the road and the great wide world around. Well, this part of the drive requires either silent contemplation, a highly charged conversation, or the playing of special music. What are those strange water towers out there? And who lives out there in the few scattered homesteads miles off the pavement? And as you approach the scattered desert town of Lucerne Valley, why are the wooded mountains far to your south crisscrossed with white lines, deep scars? Well, that's a Mitsubishi concrete factory. Sure, it's ugly. It's so ugly, there's a literal monster that prowls the devastated mountainside by night. The cement factory monster. But the road you're driving comes from somewhere, right? Ideas, plans, engineers, money, contractors. And most of all, the rock and sand and gravel and oil that adds up to mile after mile of smooth desert highway. Make sure to slow down as you roll into town. People live here in slightly more concentrated numbers than in the wasteland all around, our blessed Mojave wasteland. May it ever be so. There are schools here, a few small shops, the firehouse, the community center, and then there you are at the crossroads, downtown Lucerne Valley. Cafe 247 is right there. If your gullet's feeling a little parched, bar and grill, nostalgic road signs galore. But then it's back in the truck and left out of the parking lot. The last long segment once you're past the elementary school. Now you're Barstow bound, up and down a mountain through grand vistas of Mojave yucca and black rock outcroppings, through another popular OHV area with its own camp town and weekend restaurant bar. And watch out you don't drive into the Barstow landfill. Do watch those curves. And watch your speed on those curves. And suddenly, you're back in what we tolerate as civilization here in America's hottest and driest desert. Circle K on the right, big churches on the left. The National Park Service and Bureau of Land Management. And soon it's apartment buildings and plaster cottages and the great chasm of Interstate 15 cutting through the middle. Oh, and now you're back. With all the worries and Amazon Prime trucks of the workaday world. But you can visit the Route 66 Museum if you like, and if you've got an hour, it's worth it to visit the Harvey House, the grand old train station. For Barstow was on the Union Pacific long before it was on Route 66 and Interstate 15. That's what it is, a station town, a waypoint. Try the Barstow Bun Taco, no kidding. From Amboy to Zizix and across the Great Mojave Wilderness, this has been episode 247 of Desert Oracle Radio, supported by listeners like you at desertoracle.com. Soundscapes by Red, Blue, Black, Silver. Visit him on Bandcamp. And good night from the voice of the desert.